Hello there, I'm Scontulus, and this is TEPPEN Deck Tech, where I present to you decks that are fun, strong, or interesting. Today we are playing Red's most fair deck in 2024, Ascend Control. By leveraging solid card-for-card value and outplays alongside deck thinning, this old-school strategy becomes the most consistent way to achieve a guaranteed 3-card kill combo. Most of these cards are pretty old, like Falcon and Neon Tiger, so everyone knows them. I won't spend too much time telling you that Gli-Eye punches way over its weight, and all these 3 MPs become broken later in the game with Celestial Envoy, but Gli-Eye is a little more important. You do need to know the one play with your Ascends, where Gli-Eye's death effect triggers first, allowing all of the damage from the Ascend to go exactly where you want it if the 3 damage can kill. There's also Niche as a sick late game tool to end games if you hit your Ascends. And that brings us to our all-important Ascend, really just Kolbor, who deals 6 damage split when ascending and summons a 3 MP machine from deck. Huge value, outplay potential, pressure, and follow-up. A truly goated card, which carries the power level of this deck. Without Kolbor, we are nothing, and that's why you mulligan for a Kolbor. A good enough hand with Leon is also keepable, which might contain a couple of unreactable chairperson to hard counter black decks, or Uwasha to scale everything for Celestial Envoy later in the match. Urgent Protection is also a huge pop-off with Kolbor. Even without the blue MP, returning Kolbor to hand is broken, assuming you don't have another Kolbor. If you draw multiple Kolbor, just save the Urgent Protection because there are plenty of plays that you can go for. The most important though is just having up to 5 Kolbor by default, and an infinite number of Red's strongest card in Standard, Crimson Fighter Fafnir, loopable by the newest legendary Cellmate Mad Joey, the most misunderstood card in years, endlessly mocked for his perceived uselessness in the game, but it's just because the little guy's a pacifist. If the time comes that he must fight, he won't, but instead becomes an instant game-ending combo god card. What you loop barely matters because it's so much value just from Joey's effect. Kolbor notably lets you choose what you want to bounce, but the very best cards to bounce are the last 2 we have to talk about. First, Red's greatest game ender, possibly even eclipsing Veteran Agent Leon by now, is Crimson Fighter Fafnir. His first effect, to put an unreactable clock on the opponent, is the one that really matters, and combined with his second effect, and sometimes his third effect, you can always find a line to lethal, especially with infinite copies of him. And to make this long shot 3 hero art combo possible, we have the Stern Guard Captain Red, a very cool character from a very bad game, given a very, very cool card. Red, when played, will art charge 11, which alongside his cost is exactly 20. Clearly designed for our hero art. So, if we play this on our second hero art at any time, Red gives us instant access to the third, activating his second and his third effects to place another 6/12 onto the field, gain 3 MP, and deal 4 damage to all units. That kind of momentum offsets his 9 MP cost, genuinely, and the important effect is skipping forward an entire hero art, so we can offer our opponent a hearty, game-ending, infinite handshake. Here's the deck QR for you, and with all that said, let's get into it. Game 1, we are up against the ultimate small brain combo, high roll, turn 1 monkey cheese, Nero Devilbreaker, and given our red toolbox, this should be the perfect opportunity to show off some big outplays. We'll start things off with Falcon, the most universal starter we have, and our opponent will go for beautiful Akramulkin into what would normally be a perfect follow-up with CL. But because they did not confirm their summon, they actually cut themselves off of getting any big value from Yumekichi. At this point, we will go for our first Cold War to try and chew through their Grimalkin before it gets too much value, and we will try to return our Cold War to pocket so we can do the same thing again. It's the best way we have to play through this board. Our opponent will shield their CL, we will go for a second Cold War, and our opponent will ascend over their beautiful 8 Grimalkin, rather than trying to set up a board with both of them. It's a very questionable play, and now all of the shields have gone to CL, which isn't very threatening either. They play down a Chun-Li in the top lane, and we will deal with the most dangerous unit first, which allows us to then easily go for Chun-Li and defeat her without having generated any more shields. Our opponent will play down a Muscular, and we will get down as much damage onto it to try and defeat it. We will activate Made with Love to make sure we defeat it, and our opponent cannot protect it with the shield that they have, so we will defeat CL, making sure that all of our damage goes to Muscular. Our opponent will play down Chun-Li, defeating our strongest unit, Gli-Eye, with their Battle Chip Gogendantes. We will go for our hero art, and at this point our opponent is significantly far behind. This is the point where you beat Devil Breaker every time. They do not have any cards left that can really get them out of this. They'll go for their strongest play, pulling Gan, but like I said, the writing's on the wall for Game 1. Game 2, we are up against the Imposter Guard Captain Red deck. This is our one chance to prove that Mono Red is the true home for Red. Our opponent will start things off with Tiffany Lords, as this insane 3-color deck often does, but with no graveyard setup, she will have no effect. We will play down Falcon to try to get a little bit of momentum in our favor, and our opponent will activate a Hero Shield to try and stop us from getting any momentum. We'll respond to that by making a decision of our own, trying to control momentum actually, and our opponent will activate 2 more Hero Shields. Thankfully, the Falcon we just returned is the perfect way to interact with Hero Shields. Our opponent will activate Nero's Impotence and will respond with Made with Love, and our opponent will search another Tiffany to their pocket. That increases the chance that Nero's Imprisonment will have sent Fate-Defying Ryu. And now our opponent is just gonna be shuffling their hand as they try to find that final remaining combo piece, which they draw off the top. It is False Throne, sending Guard Captain Red to the graveyard, and now, thanks to Tiffany Lords, they can add him to their EX pocket for a single MP, activating Devil Breaker to activate all 3 of Stern Guard Captain Red's effects, wiping almost our entire board, save for a single unit, which we can ascend for Cold War to deal with part of their board, and our opponent, out of fear of Chairperson, will activate Price of Support to guarantee a red gets back in the graveyard. At this point, we will play down 2 Chairperson, dealing with 1 of their reds and the FDR that they pull with Tiffany Lords. And at this point, they have 3 units banished, which could potentially actually backfire against us, depending. Our opponent will activate another red, and as we were waiting for the board wipe, we invade an Uwasha to try and interact with this a little bit, to try and get a little momentum in our favor still. Our opponent will have to eat a Made with Love, and at this point, they are just activating blank cards, just rubbing in our face how far ahead they are. We will play down Gli-Eye in the top lane, again, to just try and find any way to fight these monstrous units. Our Uwasha will invade into the worst lane it could have, which we could have controlled, but we didn't see the line, and now Uwasha, on the other hand, does have considerable pressure in the bottom lane. Gli-Eye is able to defeat their top lane thanks to Celestial Envoy's Miracle and its death effect. Our opponent will play down another Tiffany Lords, which may or may not have added back red, and using their other Tiffany Lords, they will add back red. We will play down a red of our own, activating his 3rd and final effect to get us a ton of momentum and more than our opponent will typically get because they don't typically get good MP for it. We will activate a return to return red to our EX pocket to really threaten just what our opponent is doing to us. Our opponent will play down another Tiffany Lords. I think that just added Tiffany though, and we will play down our Crimson Fighter Fafnir. Our opponent will play down FDR, which they must have returned from the banished zone, and our opponent will activate Defect, getting another Tiffany Lords, which could have added anything at this point. I have lost track of their graveyard. We will play down our Joey, and we will ascend Cold War over our Fighting Fafnir, getting our guaranteed kill combo with the loop of Fafnir and Joey. Game 3, we are up against one of North America's greatest ever players, playing the most popular meta deck of a week and a half ago, just to fully date the match. And in this instance, our very best matchup. Thirsty will start things off with any revenge unit, and we are able to insta-counter that with an unreactable Chairperson into Kolbor, into a second Chairperson to counter Gordian. Thirsty will then play down Akechi to defeat Chairperson, allowing Akechi to remain at its full HP and actually get in an attack for once. At this point, they are able to defeat Kolbor using another revenge unit, and we will invade for Uwasha, slow playing him, getting him to go for another unit in the bottom lane, and we are then able to block in the top lane with Uwasha and allow all of our Made with Love to go to Orichi, defeating her. Now, when we finally get our invasion Uwasha, we are in complete control of the early stage of the match here. Thirsty does, of course, have both pockets full, which could be a blowout with the legendary that he likely has at the ready. We will have our field dealt with by just a string of baseline revenge units, just toolboxy as the deck ever is, and our opponent will activate Bare Knuckle Brawl. We will invade another Uwasha, trying to keep in control, and we will return our Falcon, getting even more Celestial Envoy juice. Thirsty will play down his Bare Knuckle Akechi, defeating our Uwasha, and we are just barely able to block, which we will also use our Dual Dragon Hado to stop ourselves from taking any more damage. I have a very bad habit of using life too much as a resource, and that was not a hit we could afford to take. Thirsty will invade his Vengeful Mind Dr. Vile, and we will play down our Turn Guard Captain Red, getting real greedy, waiting until right before the attack cycle connects to go for his final effect, clearing the board. Thirsty will then go for a Hitachi Hitode with the effect of Dr. Vile, and his last unit from Bare Knuckle Brawl, we are able to go for our Crimson Fighter Fafnir, and at this point we are fully set up with Joey to bounce Fafnir back to hand. Thirsty will go for Delinquent Showdown to try and stop us from doing that while we are off the MP. He will play down his Devlet, but he is not able to stop us from building the MP needed to get to Joey and bouncing Fafnir back to pocket. He will play down his strongest edge, but it's at this point that nothing can stop us with the effect of Crimson Fighter Fafnir, guaranteeing lethal. Here we are again, and is the deck actually strong? Realistically, this is a very slow deck that's pretty draw dependent on getting Kolbor, and in a meta with stronger slow decks, this isn't necessarily the strongest thing you could be playing. But because the meta's slow, we are still able to at least run our game plan and occasionally get those massive game-winning pop-offs with that 3-card combo. To me, that combo does kind of feel like the one way that Ascend is able to keep up this meta. And hopefully, with the nerfs to Rakoha, this deck will be actually somewhat well positioned in the new season. Regardless, this is a super cool deck that I feel like deserves to have a video on it before it eventually rotates. So this is my take on AZ Ascend Red. I do have a budget version for you, of course, but we're still playing a couple of those big legendaries. Otherwise, it's just Ascend. This is already a pretty budget deck. As for the next video, I might try to do another shorter tier list update for the supplementals and whatever the limited season legendaries are. Definitely let me know what decks you guys might like to see next season. Thank you guys for watching. As always, please like the video if you liked the video, subscribe if you subscribed. Once again, I'm Sconchulus, and I'll see you in the next one.